a dress. I've got two dresses to shorten. They're both for my mother-in-law. She's going on a cruise and she's a bit short like me, and she wanted her dresses shortened. And here I've already cut one to the right length, so we're going to hem that in a minute as well. But I'm going to first talk you through what do you have to watch out for when you're cutting off the length. Number one rule for trimming anything, and you can see this looks like, oh, is never fold over the edges like this and then pin them and measure it, but always take it from somewhere in the, not the hem, closer up, and it's about 60 centimeters up probably, because you'll have a much better idea how it actually falls down there. If you turn it up just from there, sometimes you get an impression that isn't quite right, so you want to do it from up here. And the same when you're doing man's pants there, it is really important. It's a building site out there actually, and it's really noisy. It's Los Angeles, so if you don't know that yet, you know now. It's always noisy. Anyway, so I have got here the distance that I need to cut off. And when I measure this, of course, it's from one side and also from the other side. So what you need to make sure is that you cut it off just right. Okay, so it's fairly simple. I measure this, it's 12 centimeters here, and I'm going to measure it here, and that's 11 and a half. That's fairly much the same. So if I go for somewhere in the middle, that's, yeah, so probably, if I go for 11, and then if I times that by 2, that is 22. So I need to shorten it by 22 centimeters. But I need to bear in mind that I have got a little seam allowance. Okay, so this little seam allowance, I want to make sure that I got that. All right. So what I want to do is I want to deduct from my 22 centimeters a 1.5 centimeters. That would be just fine to do one of these really nice narrow rolled edge hems. It's actually not so nicely done here. I'm just looking around this and I'm thinking, wow, this is terrible. We're going to do better. I'm going to show you how. Okay, so we know how much we need to take off. 21 minus 1.5, which is 20.5. Right, okay, so I'm going to cut off 20.5 from the bottom, take out these pins, there we go, and I'm not going to trim the lining at the same time because it needs to be quite a bit shorter. I'm only going to trim the top layer first. Second rule is when you're trimming it off, you always need to put your seam allowances on top of each other. Right, and that's your side seam. There's only a side seam on this, so that you can really make sure that it's even Steven, so that here the front doesn't dip on a little bit more from one side to the other. So what I'm going to do here is to place this on top of each other, so it's edge to edge. And I'm just trusting that they've done a not too bad job. And then what you want to do is like maybe shimmy it a bit with your hands like that. Do this, because that will just move the fabric. Stretch it a bit as well, that sometimes works. Now this is bias cut and it's chiffon, so you want to be very careful, which is why I thought this might make a really good video. And I can see here that they have done a really bad job. So you can see there, right? It is not cut straight. Look at this, it's awful. So you don't want that. You want this to look absolutely superb. So I flattened this out. The reason why I do this is I want the fabric to move into position. And I think it fairly much has, because with anything that's bias cut and organza or chiffon like this, it might look like it's too long in places, but it actually isn't. And if you cut it off, you get like this. And that's what they've done down here. Obviously, they didn't cut it right. Now I'm going to take my tape measure and to get up for this. And I'm going to cut it off to, what did we say? 20 and a half. So I think I'm just going to go for 20. And I'm going to bravely cut into this. Right here, make sure there's nothing underneath it. There we go, 20 centimeters off this one. It's quite a lot actually. And where they've cut it too short, we are not going to do that. Right, 20. Go. Almost there. Coming over to the other side. To just move this along. There we are. You could have marked this all, but I think this is absolutely fine. So I've cut off 20 centimeters. Beautiful. I can put that in the bin. And now I'm going to do the lining to the sound of sirens. Okay, let's do this thing. What you want to do is take off this dress, and we're going to put on the dress on a hanger like that. And now I'm going to trim the bottom here. And now I've got it on here. What I can do is crouch down very low, and I can cut this off where it needs to be. Now if I look at this, I think it's pretty much even Steven. You can cut it in one go, or you could cut the front separate to the back, which means you do this first here. It's very important to cut it while it's hanging actually. You never know with the lining. There we go. And then you can cut the back as well. And bearing in mind that we'll have to trim the back again on the table in a second, because obviously we don't want this to show. So I'm just kind of roughly cutting it. There we go. Looking good, I think. Let's have a look from the back. Looking good. And that's it. We can now go back to our table work. So that isn't really so difficult, is it? Key is that you do the side seams on top of each other, you hang it up to cut your lining, you bring it back on your table, and then you're going to have a look at this again. And what we want to do here is just trim it a little bit shorter than what I've already had, and so that both sides are the same. I do exactly what I did at the top. I'm going to place my side seams on top of each other, and then I'm going to cut that down a bit. See, the things you can learn. Now, when I was an apprentice, having to do the alterations was not what I wanted. I just wanted to make the new stuff, like little ball gowns. And my first ball gown was so beautiful. It was a pink dress, and we call them Meisters in Germany. She trusted me with that dress, and I'll never forget it. I made the dress, and it took me probably like weeks. If I remember rightly, I was there forever. And it was a little bone number corset. And when I was done, the person that got it, she said that, actually it was a dude, yeah, for his daughter. And he said that it was as tidy from the inside as it was from the outside. And so I was so pleased with that. Anyway, back to this. I'm going to cut off another 2 centimeters here. Even Steven, evening this out a little bit. It doesn't matter if the lining is a little bit shorter. The important thing is that it is shorter than the dress, otherwise you will have it peeping out. So now I've done that, I am actually ready to go onto my sewing machine and just sew this in. There are a few tricks for you to learn on the sewing machine, and the first trick now is, after I've done this all perfect, if I hold this up to myself, for me this would still be, I think, a little bit long, but yeah, this was floor length. So now what we're going to do to make life a little bit easier for us, we're going to actually insert a stitch into this, and we're going to do it foot width from the edge, so that we've got something to turn it up into, because you could see how messy that thing was. before we started, and we want to show that actually you can do it better. So let's do that now. Right, we're at the next step now where we can go to the sewing machine. I've thread mine up and I've actually finished this one, which came out absolutely beautiful. And the trick to getting this right, we're going to see the before and after in a minute, where you can have a look at what the hem looked like before this technique and what it looked like after or with this technique. So put your hem underneath the sewing machine. I would suggest that you do the right side facing up, and you put it on foot width. And now the key is just to have one stitching line all the way along it. So what you want to do is push your fabric in so that it's almost like a holding thread that's slightly condensed. So never ever let it go just like that. You want to push it in, so you're holding it in as you go. This makes working with chiffon really easy. You get these perfect results, which you'll see in a minute. This will take time. You're doing chiffon, you're doing bias cut, anything like that, take your time, don't rush it. So we go. Sometimes you will see that it goes a little bit over the side, on the side there, and you're evening things out a bit. That's okay, because the teeth of your machine are actually grabbing it, and if it shows it's like a tiny little bit more over to the middle, then that's what you're gonna do, like away from the edge. So just keep doing that all the way around. There we go. It's really like pushing it in, pushing it in. It makes all the difference. There's no way you can do a really tidy hem with chiffon without this technique. And I guarantee you'll never do it again differently. In fact, somebody asks you, you'll say, yeah, that'll be like $60. We'll be done in half an hour. So, but they'll never know. And also, it's really nice when you can deliver something back where they don't go, oh my God, I wish I'd gone to somebody different, you know, because it is extremely hard to get it right without this technique. So, I mean, even I struggle. I don't struggle with much at all, I have to say. There we go. This is proper couture sewing. I'm just step it up a bit now. And go a bit faster. You can see here I've cut a little bit not so even. The machine evens it out. And I've gone all the way around. So I'm taking it off my sewing machine now, and I'm going to turn the edge in and press it. Ooh, don't fall off. Right, I'm ready to go, and I'm going to fold it over exactly where I've stitched. And I do that all the way around. And that makes life so easy. And there's loads of sites now calling themselves so easy, right? So easy. Well, actually, this is not easy, but it's a technique that will give you a really good result, even if you are a beginner and people saying, can you do this for me? You have got a sewing machine now, surely you can sew it. Because that's what they do. They think you bought yourself a sewing machine and magically you become an expert at everything, especially doing the alterations. It's like, no, just buy something new. Buy something new. If you ever had that where somebody brings you something that is so old and so ripped and they say, oh, can you fix this? And you're just thinking, do you know, you would never pay $100 to have this fixed, or even more than that. That's more than the thing is worth, but they think you can do it because you're like, you know, you have a sewing machine. So get in the habit of making very sure everyone knows how much you hate the alteration, and then when you do one for them, they really appreciate it, and also make them wait for it. Never do it straight away, because they'll be back with everything they have in their cupboard. Anyway, I'm giving away my secrets here. Oh dear. So all the way around, well, it gets a bit boring if you don't tell you any little stories. Right, I'm around. Done this now. Beautiful. Now some of you might say, oh, I want to just press this again. I find that harder. You can see how that would be like really, really messy. So what I'm going to do is not do that. I'm going to put this away, and we're going to go onto a sewing machine here. Right, so I'm turning this in, right, just like that. And because I've got the stitching line in it, it really holds it in place. So I'm just going to find a starting point. The width I like, so not quite a centimetre. I think that's too much. The key to this is to not pull on it like this, but to put it on really loosely. Just turn it in. I'm gonna just pull on where I have got my thread, and I sit it down, right? And my left hand can kind of like sort it out, and you'll find you get a really good result like that. And then I'm stitching just on the edge of this. And now if I line up my fabric with just within that plastic, it'll just about catch it. I had to move the camera around there. I need to be in control of what I'm doing. With a lot of the kids stuff I don't need to, but we're talking chiffon. So I need to turn this in. I'm going a ways distance here, so I can now clearly see this can fit on there really nicely. And so my hand holds it flat. Oh, this is better. You need to sit straight in front of your sewing machine. And you will have none of this slightly gathered edge where it kind of pushes and pulls. And I'm just working my way around now. So I go to my next step, turn it up. Can you see what it would do if it wasn't for that thread in there holding it in place? Oh my goodness, it would be awful. So now I can do another little bit. This is very difficult. On the other dress, it was way easier because it wasn't chiffon like this. So now I'm going to leave it first loose. There we go. Make sure it sits nicely. Hold it down with my fingers and do my next step. And if it starts to sort of pleat a bit, I'm just like take, there you go. And you can see it coming out of the end. That's perfect. I'll be there a while. But since this is a sewing workshop, you're going to see it all. You can't turn it off or shorten it. And quite loosely here, I'm not like pulling it, although I could in this case. Actually, look how beautiful that then sits. And I'll take my pin, make sure that nothing moves, or use my fingers, whichever you prefer. Go to that point. People will say, how on earth did you hem this? How did you get that so well? Oh, look at that. It comes out just perfect. There we go. Holding it with my needle. And there we go. Beautiful. There we are. Look at that. It's very loosely. I'm not like pulling it on at all now. In some areas you obviously can pull it, and in other areas you can't pull it. Next bit. Should better appreciate this, right? There we go. Keep doing it. Not letting any of this pleat. That's the perfect result of the back here coming out. There we go. pull it a little bit and then I let it go, which you never pull is an actual dress. It's just where you have that thread in, because that you can, that's not going to pull anyway, is it? It's not going to go more than the it should, because the thread tension is just going to hold it to where it needs to be. And because we're coming in on ourselves, of course, by pushing it in like that, we held it in a bit, and that's totally helpful now when we're doing this. And where it wants to pleat, we say niet. 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 I'm sorry, who do I remind you of? Let's make this in some Hollywood person. Yet. Sorry, I'm getting carried away here. I was like, keep going. Whoop-de-doo. In some areas like here, I can only do a little bit at a time. It's obviously where it's the most on the bias. That's the hardest part, really. Oops, there we go. Wow. I'm loving how this comes out though. And actually it doesn't take you longer than 20 minutes to do this. So I think if you are doing alterations and you've really struggled with this and you've been like there 1.5 hours for 25 quid to you know, to do this properly, and you had to undo certain things and you lost your mind, well, you won't anymore. Oh, this is really nice. This is a bit straighter here, so it's like I can go way faster. And also you can cut off your seam allowances and make it a bit thinner. When you cut those without having this thread in, that usually unravels, which is really, really nasty. I've had that a few times because I didn't always do it like this. But now that I do, can you see how awful that there's no way on earth you would get past this seam and get this in nicely without that thread. But with this, you can see, although it's not the easiest part of the dress to get past, we're going to do a really super finish. Look at that. We've done it. We've gone over it. The amount of ugly bits I've had in that area when I used to do these, especially, you know, when I started sewing and I didn't know how to do things. So I'm almost round, people, and I can say I've done it. And I'm going to do that on the lining possibly as well, but not inflict that on you. Once is enough, right? Right, almost there. See, another really difficult bit. So I'm making sure that the fabric is right flat underneath it. Whoops. One pleat in there. Labor of love this is. Of course, some of you will say, well, I just narrow raw edge hem overlock this, which is of course okay as well. You can do that, but when you're doing an alteration, somebody brings you something, they expect it back how they brought it to you. Wow, look at this. Now this is a really dicey area again. Oh, I think it's only because I've ironed it. See, that's okay. I'll get my pin. Okay. Almost there. Almost just a wee little bit longer. A tiny bit more. There we are. And done. Oh, this is the, look, this is like so typical, isn't it? I'm just like centimeters away from finishing and I slipped off the edge. Phew, all done. So I can put this away now, and I can do the same on the lining here, but I'm not going to do that while you watch because I don't think there's any need to do it. You've seen it, it's exactly the same technique for your lining, and I'm just going to get all this off here, and we're going to have a little look and compare the before and after. Oh, hang on. Before we do, I'm going to give this a quick press, I think, so that we can get the perfect hem. And I think you're going to do it like this always now, because this is simply perfection. I tell you, really, it absolutely is. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm looking at this and kind of trying to find fault with it, and I can't, so ding! Right. Ooh, this is so good. I tell you what, I am very proud of even myself here. I'm thinking this is fabulous. And I think my mother-in-law will be very, very happy with what she got here. This is very nice. It makes the dress really good press. I'm just looking for flaws, and to be fair, I can't see any. Surprise, people, but give credit where it's due. This is perfect. Now, of course, all these techniques are techniques that you learn when you do professional sewing, like I did, and when you are, when you're not a professional and you're just sewing from home, you've got YouTube, and that's about it, right? So I am glad that I can show you this here. I wish I had YouTube when I was younger and did this. So let's now get the bit that I've cut off, and I'm just going to find the most offending areas are always the ones that are where you have a seam. So we're going to have a look at this now, and as you can see here, this one is, I mean, stitched. I can't describe to you how bad this is. And then you can see what I just did, and it's not because the person that sewed it is so masterfully, because of course I am, but simply because I used the right technique. You use the right technique, you've got a good sewing machine. I'm using a Pfaff Select with IDT, that is that little foot at the back that transports it really well. So you've got one of those machines. I would suggest a mechanical always, and again, they don't pay me for anything I say. I just love my Pfaff machine. So you get a good machine, a basic machine, and then you know the techniques, and you can do something like this, and it's no problem. I just want to quickly also show you the other dress which I've done, which is on the hanger already here, all ready to go. I did that in between. And you can see here how beautiful and even that looks. So all you have to do is stick with the techniques. It's absolutely wonderful. It doesn't matter where you go on this dress, you're not going to find mistakes, because I've used a stay thread all around, and that's all. And I think whether you're an intermediate sewer or someone that's a beginner with a little bit of experience, this is the technique you want to know for doing all these very lightweight chiffon garments. And if you're making yourself a chiffon top, then of course this is also a really great technique. So that was this one. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you soon again. Don't forget, we have the academy.frocksandfrolics.com, where you can see all sorts of videos that I've done previously. We've got the sewing workshop there as well, and here on YouTube, where I show you how to put in zips and how to do seams and all that sort of thing. So you could pop on over that. The links are in the info box, of course, and also in the top right hand corner of the videos there's always an info button. You click on that and that takes you straight to the website as well, where you can then join courses. A lot of the technique courses are actually all free. What I charge for tend to be the videos that have to do with my patterns, of course. So there we go, we are all done, and the next one is going to be how to transform a t-shirt for a young lady who's asked me to do her t-shirt because she thought it was rather frumpy. So watch out for that one. We're going to do that one next week. Bye for now.